Ambassador Lisa Grant stood at the podium in the Great Hall of Station Nexus. The massive chamber held representatives from 47 different alien species. Some had tentacles, others had scales, and a few looked like walking trees. But all of them were staring at her with the same confused expression. Lisa looked down at the simple piece of paper in her hands. She had read these words 100 times during her flight to the station. Earth's leaders had been very clear about what she needed to say. Fellow members of the Galactic Council, Lisa began, her voice echoing through the chamber. I come before you today with an important message from the people of Earth. The alien representatives leaned forward in their seats. Chairman Vextar, a tall reptilian creature with golden scales, nodded for her to continue. Humanity withdraws from all galactic affairs immediately. We will no longer participate in council meetings, trade agreements, or diplomatic relations. Do not attempt to contact us. Lisa folded the paper and placed it in her pocket. This decision is final. The chamber erupted in chaos. Aliens jumped from their seats, shouting in dozens of different languages. Chairman Vextar banged his ceremonial staff on the floor, trying to restore order. Ambassador Grant! Vextar called out over the noise. Surely there has been some mistake. What has caused this sudden decision? Lisa shook her head. There is no mistake, Chairman. Earth has made its choice. She turned and walked toward the exit. Good luck with your future endeavors. 3 months. Later, the chaos had only gotten worse. Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair aboard the exploration vessel Horizon's Edge. His ship was drifting near the edge of known space, far from any major trade routes. Jake was a career military officer who had spent 20 years exploring the galaxy for Earth's Central Command. Captain called out Amy Rodriguez from her science station. Amy was his chief science officer and had been with him for 5 years. I'm still not picking up any signals from Earth. Jake rubbed his tired eyes. For 3 months, every human ship, station, and colony had gone completely silent. Not just to alien communications, but to each other as well. It was like someone had flipped a switch and turned off all of humanity at once. What about the other human ships? Jake asked. Tony Clark, his first officer, turned from his navigation console. Same thing, sir. I can detect them on long-range sensors, but they're not responding to any messages. Jake had been trying to figure out what happened ever since the blackout began. His last communication from Earth had been simple. Execute Gray Protocol immediately. Maintain position until further notice. Gray Protocol was something Jake had heard about but never seen implemented. It was supposed to be used only in the most extreme circumstances. The protocol required all human vessels and installations to cease all external communications and wait for new orders. Captain, Amy said, looking up from her instruments, I'm detecting 3 alien ships approaching our position. Jake stood up and walked to the main view screen. 3 sleek vessels were coming toward them at high speed. He recognized the design. They were from the Zenthari Empire, Chairman Vextar's people. They're trying to contact us, sir, Tony reported. Let me guess, Jake said. They want to talk. Yes, sir. They're broadcasting on all frequencies, asking us to respond. Jake watched the alien ships get closer. Part of him wanted to answer their calls. He had worked with Zenthari crews before and found them to be decent people, but his orders were clear. Maintain silence, Jake ordered. Continue on our current course. The Zenthari ships followed them for 2 hours before finally giving up and turning back toward their home territory. On Station Nexus, Chairman Vextar was having the worst 3 months of his political career. The Great Council chamber that once buzzed with productive debate was now filled with angry voices and desperate pleading. We must do something, shouted Representative Thiss from the Aquatic Collective. Thiss looked like a giant octopus and normally spoke in calm, measured tones. Today, however, she was clearly upset. The humans were our primary peacekeepers, added Council Member Jorak from the Mining Guild. Without them, the Corvan Trade Federation and the Stellar Republic are already fighting again. Vextar knew this was true. For the past 50 years, humans had served as mediators in almost every major galactic dispute. They had a talent for finding solutions that worked for everyone involved. Now, with the humans gone, old conflicts were starting up again. What about trade? Asked Representative Kilks from the Merchant Alliance. Human goods make up 30% of our total galactic commerce. Their quantum processors alone power half the ships in the galaxy. This was another major problem. Human technology had become essential to galactic civilization. Their computers were faster, their medical equipment was more advanced, and their weapons were more effective than anything other species could produce. Now, with all human factories and shipyards silent, supplies were running dangerously low. Have we tried sending ships to Earth? Asked Thys. Vextar nodded. We've sent 12 different diplomatic missions to the Sol system. None of them have received any response. The humans simply ignore them. What about their colonies? Jorak suggested. Same result, Vextar replied. Every human settlement, every space station, every mining operation, they're all completely silent. Our sensors show that they're still active and populated, but they won't communicate with anyone. Representative Kilks waved one of his forearms in frustration. This is impossible. You can't just make an entire species disappear. But that's exactly what seemed to have happened. Humanity had vanished from galactic civilization as completely as if they had never existed. The only difference was that their absence left a massive hole that no one else could fill. Dr. Helen Burke sat in her laboratory on Darwin's Gate, a remote research station near the galactic rim. Helen was one of Earth's top xenobiologists, and she had been studying alien life forms for 15 years. Her assistant, Peter Walsh, was monitoring the communication equipment in the next room. Dr. Burke, Peter called out, we're getting another message from the Corvin Science Academy. They want to know if we'll share our research on crystalline life forms. Helen didn't look up from her microscope. Same answer as before, Peter. No response. Peter sighed. That's the 20th request this week. They're getting pretty desperate. Helen finally raised her head. I know it's hard, Peter. These people used to be our friends and colleagues, but we have our orders. The Grey Protocol was clear. No human was to communicate with any alien species for any reason. Helen didn't understand why Earth had made this decision, but she trusted her government's judgment. Dr. Burke, Peter said, his voice more serious now. I think you should hear this latest message. Helen walked into the communication room and listened as Peter played back the recording. The Biden voice belonged to Dr. Vexnull, a Xanthari scientist Helen had worked with for years. Please, Helen, the alien's voice said through the translator. We have a plague outbreak on Xanthari Prime. Thousands are dying. We need your expertise with biological containment. I'm begging you to help us. Helen felt her heart breaking as she listened to her old friend's desperate plea. She knew she could help them. Her research on quarantine procedures could save countless lives, but she also knew that breaking the Grey Protocol could put all of humanity at risk. Send no response, Helen said quietly. As Peter turned off the communication equipment, Helen wondered how long humanity could maintain this silence. More importantly, she wondered what would happen to the galaxy if they couldn't. 6 weeks had passed since humanity went silent, and the galaxy was falling apart. Commander Rex Vallon of the Corvin Trade Federation stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching enemy ships approach. The Stellar Republic fleet had crossed into Corvin space 3 days ago, claiming an old mining dispute gave them rights to the Zeta-7 asteroid belt. Sir, should we open fire? Asked his weapons officer. Rex hesitated. 6 months ago, he would have called the human peacekeepers. Ambassador Lisa Grant would have arrived within hours, sat both sides down, and worked out a fair solution. Everyone respected the humans, everyone listened to them, but the humans were gone now. Fire warning shots, Rex ordered. Let's see if they back down. The Republic ships didn't back down. Within minutes, the first real battle in 50 years had begun. Laser fire lit up the darkness of space as both fleets engaged in combat. On the other side of the galaxy, Captain Sarah Kim of the merchant vessel Lucky Strike was running for her life. 3 pirate ships had been chasing her for 2 hours, and her cargo hold was full of medical supplies desperately needed on Colony 7. Captain, they're gaining on us, reported her engineer, Mark Williams. Sarah gripped her command chair tighter. Before the humans went silent, pirate attacks like this were rare. Human patrol ships kept the trade routes safe. The pirates knew that attacking a merchant vessel would bring swift retaliation from Earth's navy. Now the pirates were everywhere. "Transfer all power to engines," Sarah ordered. "We're not losing this cargo." The Lucky Strike's engines roared to life, pushing the ship beyond safe limits. Behind them, the pirate vessels fell back slightly, but they weren't giving up. On Station Nexus, Chairman Vextar called another emergency session of the Galactic Council. The Great Chamber was fuller than it had been in decades. Representatives, who normally skipped meetings, were now attending every session, desperate for solutions. "The situation is getting worse every day," Vextar announced to the assembled aliens. "We have confirmed reports of armed conflict in the Corvin sector. Pirate activity has increased by 300%, and that's just the beginning." Representative Theiss from the Aquatic Collective raised one of her tentacles. "What about the economic situation?" Council member Jorak from the Mining Guild stood up. "It's a disaster. The price of quantum processors has increased by 500%. Medical nanobots are nearly impossible to find. And don't get me started on human-designed weapon systems. We're seeing riots on some worlds," added Representative Kilks from the Merchant Alliance. "Species that became dependent on human goods are facing shortages of basic necessities." Vextar nodded grimly. "I've received reports of 3 different worlds requesting emergency food aid. Their agricultural systems were based on human biotechnology." The chamber filled with worried murmurs. Many species had adopted human innovations over the past 50 years. Human scientists had improved farming techniques, medical procedures, and manufacturing processes across the galaxy. Now, without human support, those improvements were failing. Dr. Helen Burke sat in her laboratory on Darwin's Gate, staring at a message she couldn't ignore. Her assistant, Peter Walsh, had given up trying to convince her to respond to alien communications, but this message was different. The recording showed Dr. Zenthar, a brilliant Corvin scientist Helen had mentored years ago. Zenthar was standing in what looked like a hospital ward filled with sick children. "Dr. Burke," the alien's translated voice said, "the plague on Corvin Prime has spread to the nursery worlds. We have 12 million infected children, and our medical systems are failing. The human nanobots you helped us develop were our primary treatment method, but our supply has run out." Zenthar moved closer to the camera. "I know you can't respond, but if you're listening, please know that children are dying every hour. The manufacturing process for the nanobots was a human trade secret. We never learned how to make them ourselves." The recording ended and Helen sat in silence. She had helped develop those nanobots specifically for Corvin physiology. Without them, the plague would kill millions. "Dr. Burke," Peter said softly from the doorway, "you know we can't help them." Helen nodded, but her hands were shaking. "I know, Peter, but that doesn't make it easier." Captain Jake Morrison received a priority signal on his ship's long-range sensors. The USS Horizon's Edge was still patrolling the outer rim, maintaining radio silence as ordered. But Jake's sensors were picking up something alarming. "Captain," Amy Rodriguez called from her science station, "I'm detecting weapons fire in the Corvin sector. It looks like a full-scale battle." Tony Clark checked his navigation charts. "Sir, that's right in the middle of the main trade route. If fighting spreads, it could cut off supply lines to a dozen colonies." Jake stood up and walked to the main view screen. He could see the distant flashes of laser fire even from their position light years away. Before the Gray Protocol, his ship would have already been racing toward the battle to help restore peace. "Any other human ships in the area?" Jake asked. "Yes, sir," Amy replied. "I'm detecting at least 3 Earth vessels within range of the fighting, but they're all maintaining position just like us." Jake felt a knot forming in his stomach. His crew was watching him, waiting for orders. They all knew that people were dying while they sat here doing nothing. "We maintain course," Jake said finally. "That's our orders." The economic collapse was accelerating faster than anyone had predicted. On the industrial world of Mechanica, factory owner Grixton was shutting down his 3rd production line this month. "We can't make anything without human components," Grixton explained to his workers. "The quantum processors that run our assembly lines came from Earth. The programming that controls our robots was written by human engineers. His workers, a mix of different alien species, listened in worried silence. "How long can we stay in business?" asked one of them. Crixton looked at his financial reports. "Maybe 2 months. After that, we'll have to close completely." Similar scenes were playing out across the galaxy. Shipyards that built vessels using human designs were running out of parts. Hospitals that relied on human medical technology were facing equipment failures. Even the communication networks that connected different worlds were starting to break down without human technical support. Representative Thiss contacted Chairman Vextar with an urgent proposal. "We need to send a military fleet to Earth," she said during a private meeting. "This has gone on long enough." Vextar considered the idea. "The humans have always been peaceful in their dealings with us, but we both remember what happened during the War of Three Suns." Thiss nodded reluctantly. "Their military capabilities are significant." Significant was putting it mildly. Human warships had ended a conflict that had raged for decades, and they had done it in just 6 months. No one wanted to find out what would happen if humanity decided to fight back. Dr. Helen Burke made a decision that would haunt her dreams. Peter Walsh found her in the laboratory, destroying years of research data. "What are you doing?" Peter asked. "Making sure," Helen replied, deleting another file. "If we're going to maintain the Gray Protocol, we can't leave any information that might accidentally help them." Helen had realized that her research notes contained enough information for alien scientists to reverse engineer human medical technology. If she was going to follow Earth's orders, she had to remove that temptation completely. As she deleted the last file, Helen wondered if she was making the right choice. Somewhere in the galaxy, children were dying from diseases she could cure. Wars were starting that she could help prevent. The economy was collapsing without human innovation and support, but Earth had given its orders, and Helen would follow them. She just hoped that her government knew what they were doing. The galaxy was learning what life looked like without humanity. So far, they didn't like what they were seeing. The alien diplomatic ship Harmony's Voice was the most advanced vessel the Galactic Council had ever built. It carried representatives from 12 major civilizations and had enough firepower to defend against any pirate attack. More importantly, it carried complete authority to negotiate with humanity on behalf of the entire galaxy. Ambassador Kethmore stood on the bridge, watching the yellow star that humans called Sol grow larger on the view screen. Kethmore was a tall, thin reptilian from the Serpentine Commonwealth. He had been chosen to lead this mission because he was known as the galaxy's best negotiator. "Ambassador," reported the ship's captain, "we're detecting human vessels throughout the system, but none of them are responding to our signals." Kethmore nodded. "Keep broadcasting our diplomatic codes. Surely they'll realize we come in peace." The Harmony's Voice entered the outer edge of the Sol system, passing near the planet humans called Pluto. Immediately, they detected dozens of human ships. Military vessels, cargo haulers, and civilian transports all moved through space as if the alien ship didn't exist. "They're completely ignoring us," the captain said. "Continue toward Earth," Kethmore ordered. "We have our mission." On Luna Base, Commander Ryan Foster watched the alien ship approach on his tactical display. Ryan was in charge of Earth's Gray Protocol defense coordination. For 4 months, he had been implementing humanity's complete withdrawal from galactic civilization. "Sir," reported Communications Director Kate Sullivan, "the alien vessel is broadcasting diplomatic immunity codes. They're requesting permission to enter Earth orbit." Ryan looked at his orders one more time. They were simple and clear: no contact with any alien species under any circumstances. "No response," Ryan said. "Maintain the protocol." Strategic Analyst Ben Carter looked up from his computer terminal. "Sir, my intelligence reports show this ship carries representatives from the major galactic powers. This might be our chance to end the isolation." Ryan shook his head. "Our orders come from the highest levels of government, Ben. We don't break the Gray Protocol for anyone." The economic collapse was accelerating across the galaxy. On the trading world of Commerce Prime, merchant captain Lisa Chen was trying to explain to her crew why they couldn't find buyers for their cargo. "Nobody wants what we're selling," Lisa said, looking at her manifest. "These components were designed to work with human technology. Without human systems to connect them to, they're worthless." Her first officer, a blue-skinned Altarian named Vexic, studied the market reports. "Captain, the entire galactic economy was built around human innovation. We sold raw materials to humans, and they sold us finished products. Now that they're gone, the whole system has collapsed." Lisa nodded sadly. "Half the merchant fleet is sitting in dock with no cargo to carry. The other half is carrying goods nobody wants to buy." The situation was even worse in the outer colonies. On New Haven, a human settlement world, Governor Paul Anderson faced an impossible choice. His colony was completely self-sufficient, but they had alien neighbors who were starving. "Governor," his aide Jenny Morris said during their morning briefing, "the Corvin colony on the next planet is requesting food aid. Their agricultural systems are failing without human technical support." Paul looked out his office window at the alien transport ships waiting at the edge of his system. "How many of them are there?" 2 million Corvins, sir. Mostly families with children. Paul had received clear orders to maintain isolation from all alien species, but he was looking at 2 million people who might die of starvation. "Sir," Jenny continued, "the Corvin governor is broadcasting personal messages begging for help. She says they'll do anything we ask in return for food supplies." Paul closed his eyes. "No contact, Jenny. Those are our orders." The military situation was getting worse every day. The war between the Corvin Trade Federation and the Stellar Republic had spread to include 4 other civilizations. Without human peacekeepers to mediate, old grudges were turning into new conflicts. Admiral Beth Rodriguez of the Republic Navy was preparing for the largest space battle in 50 years. Her fleet of 200 warships was facing off against an equal number of Corvin vessels near the disputed Gamma sector. "Admiral," reported her tactical officer, "enemy ships are moving into attack formation." Beth had fought alongside human forces during the War of Three Suns. She remembered how easily human commanders had ended conflicts that seemed impossible to resolve. Now she was facing a war that could destroy both civilizations. "All ships, prepare for battle," Beth ordered. "May the stars forgive us for what we're about to do." Back on the Harmony's voice, Ambassador Kethmore was running out of options. His ship had been orbiting Earth for 3 days, broadcasting every diplomatic protocol known to galactic civilization. The humans continued to ignore them completely. "Ambassador," the ship's communications officer said, "we're detecting thousands of human vessels in Earth orbit, but none of them will acknowledge our presence." Kethmore looked at the blue and green planet below. "It's like we don't exist to them." The alien diplomat tried a different approach. "Broadcast this message on all frequencies. To the people of Earth, the galaxy is dying without you. Please, we need to talk." On Luna Base, Kate Sullivan intercepted the message and brought it to Commander Foster. "Sir, they're getting desperate," Kate said. "This is their most direct plea yet." Ryan read the message and felt a pang of guilt. "Kate, how many worlds are reporting crisis situations?" 47 worlds are experiencing economic collapse. 12 are dealing with military conflicts. 6 are facing medical emergencies they can't handle without human technology. Ben Carter added his intelligence report. "Sir, our analysis shows the galactic economy has contracted by 30%. If this continues, we're looking at complete civilizational breakdown within 6 months." Ryan stood up and walked to the observation window. He could see Earth below, blue and peaceful. "Ben, in your analysis, how long can we maintain the Gray Protocol?" "Indefinitely, sir. Earth is completely self-sufficient. Our colonies can survive without alien contact. But the galaxy—" Ben paused. "The galaxy might not survive without us." The pirate problem was getting out of control. Captain David Lee of the merchant vessel Star Trader was the 5th ship attacked this week. The pirates had destroyed his engines and were demanding his cargo. "Captain," his navigator Mike Torres whispered, "before the humans went silent, we could call for help. Now we're on our own." David activated his emergency beacon, hoping some human patrol ship might respond, but he knew it was useless. The Gray Protocol meant no human ship would come to their aid. Dr. Helen Burke received another desperate message on Darwin's gate. This time it came from the Zenthari Medical Academy. Dr. Burke, this is Dr. Vexnell again. The plague on our world has mutated. It's no longer responding to any of our treatments. We've lost 12 million people, including most of our medical researchers. You're our only hope. Helen stared at the message for a long time. Her research station had the medical facilities to develop a cure. She could save an entire civilization, but she also knew that breaking the Gray Protocol could endanger all of humanity. Peter Walsh found her in the laboratory, staring at a blank computer screen. Dr. Burke, you can't save everyone, Peter said gently. I know, Helen replied, but that doesn't make it easier to watch them die. Ambassador Kethmore made one final attempt to contact Earth. His ship moved into a high orbit directly above the major population centers. People of Earth, he broadcast. I am Ambassador Kethmore of the Galactic Council. I come with full authority to negotiate any terms you require. Name your price. Ask for anything. Just please, talk to us. The response was the same as always. Complete silence. Kethmore turned to his communications officer. Send a message back to the Galactic Council. Tell them that humanity has made their choice. They want nothing to do with us. As the Harmony's voice prepared to leave the Sol system, Kethmore took one last look at Earth. The blue planet seemed peaceful and calm, completely unaware of the chaos spreading across the galaxy. Why? Kethmore asked quietly. What did we do to deserve this? On Lunabase, Commander Foster received confirmation that the alien diplomatic ship was leaving the system. Phase 3 of the Gray Protocol was complete. Humanity had successfully demonstrated their determination to remain isolated. But as Ryan looked at the reports of galactic collapse piling up on his desk, he wondered if they were making the right choice. The galaxy was tearing itself apart, without human guidance. Soon, Earth's leaders would have to decide. Was proving their point worth watching civilization collapse? Intelligence Officer Chris Morgan sat in his small office deep inside Earth's Central Intelligence Building. For 6 months, he had been the most hated man in the galaxy, though no alien knew his name. Chris was the person who had discovered the truth that led to humanity's complete withdrawal from galactic civilization. It had started with a routine security check 3 months before the Gray Protocol began. Chris was analyzing communication patterns when he noticed something strange. Alien diplomatic messages were arriving at Earth before human ships had even sent their reports from distant sectors. How is that possible? Chris had asked his computer analyst, Nancy Webb. Nancy pulled up the data files. It looks like someone is intercepting our communications and forwarding them to alien governments. Chris felt his blood run cold. Show me everything. What they found was worse than anyone could have imagined. The Galactic Council had been secretly watching humanity for over 2 years. They had listening devices on human ships, spy programs in human computers, and even undercover agents living in human colonies. The surveillance network was massive. Every human message, every military report, every private conversation was being recorded and analyzed by alien intelligence services. They called it the Sapient Species Monitoring Protocol. Chris had taken his findings directly to President Laura Evans. Ma'am, Chris had said during their emergency meeting, they're watching everything we do. Our military plans, our trade secrets, our diplomatic strategies. The aliens know about our technology before our own people do. President Evans had studied the evidence for hours. How long has this been going on? At least 2 years, possibly longer. The surveillance program was approved by a council vote, 847 in favor, 712 against, 231 abstentions. The president had been quiet for a long time. Chris, they voted to spy on us right after we helped them resolve the Andorian crisis. Chris nodded. Yes, ma'am. We saved their colonies from civil war, and they repaid us by treating us like criminals who needed to be watched. Now, 6 months later, the truth was finally coming out. not because humanity had revealed it, but because alien intelligence agencies were investigating the cause of humanity's withdrawal. On Station Nexus, Zenthari intelligence agent Krixtal was presenting his findings to Chairman Vextar in a private meeting. "Chairman," Krixtal said, "we've discovered why the humans left us." Vextar looked up from his desk. "Tell me everything." 3 months before the humans went silent, their intelligence services discovered our monitoring protocol. They know. We've been watching them. Vextar felt his scales turn pale. "How much do they know?" "Everything, sir. They found our listening devices, cracked our spy networks, and identified our undercover agents. The humans know exactly how extensively we've been surveilling them." The chairman sat back in his chair. "And their response was to cut off all contact." "Yes, sir. Instead of confronting us or demanding explanations, they simply walked away." Vextar realized the full implications of what had happened. "They're not angry, Krixtal. They're disappointed." Meanwhile, the galaxy continued to tear itself apart. The war between the Corvan Trade Federation and the Stellar Republic had grown into the largest conflict in 50 years. Admiral Beth Rodriguez was leading the Republic fleet in a desperate battle near the Omega Nebula. "Admiral," her tactical officer reported, "we've lost 30 ships. The Corvans are pressing their advantage." Beth watched enemy vessels close in on her position. "All ships prepare for retreat. We can't win this fight." As the Republic fleet pulled back, Beth thought about the human peacekeepers who could have prevented this war with a single diplomatic meeting. Instead, millions of people were dying in a conflict that served no purpose except old pride and newer desperation. On Earth, President Laura Evans was meeting with her Global Defense Council. The room was filled with humanity's top military and political leaders. "Ma'am," said Defense Secretary Robert Clark, "the galactic situation is worse than we predicted. Economic collapse, multiple wars, and humanitarian crises on dozens of worlds." "How? Many people have died because of our withdrawal?" the president asked. Intelligence Director Karen Williams consulted her reports. "Conservative estimates put the number at 50 million. That includes deaths from wars, economic collapse, medical emergencies, and starvation." The president was quiet for a moment. "And how many people died during the Andorian crisis that we helped resolve?" "Approximately 200 million would have died if the Civil War had continued, so we saved 200 million lives, and they repaid us by voting to spy on us." Treasury Secretary Dan Foster spoke up. "Ma'am, the economic data shows that humanity was essentially running the galactic economy. Our technology, our manufacturing, our trade networks, we were the foundation that everything else was built on." President Evans nodded. "And they decided we were too dangerous to trust." On the research station Darwin's Gate, Dr. Helen Burke finally received the information she had been waiting for. Peter Walsh brought her a classified intelligence report that explained why humanity had implemented the Gray Protocol. "Dr. Burke," Peter said, "now I understand why we can't help them." Helen read the report and felt a mixture of anger and sadness. They were watching us the entire time. Every medical breakthrough, every scientific discovery, every private conversation between researchers. The report says they even had agents posing as research assistants in human laboratories. Helen thought about all the alien scientists she had worked with over the years, how many of them had been genuine colleagues and how many had been spies. "Peter, do you know what this means? That we can't trust them? More than that, it means they never saw us as equals. We were subjects to be studied, not partners to work with." Captain Jake Morrison received his first update about the surveillance program while patrolling the Outer Rim. His communications officer, Amy Rodriguez, brought him the classified intelligence briefing. "Captain," Amy said, "this explains everything. The aliens weren't treating us as allies. They were treating us as a potential threat that needed constant monitoring." Jake read through the evidence of alien surveillance on human ships. "Amy, they had access to our navigation logs, our mission reports, even our personal communications." Tony Clark joined them on the bridge. "Sir, this means they knew about every human military capability, every technological advancement, every strategic plan, and we shared it all willingly, Jake said bitterly. We thought we were building trust through transparency. The full scope of the surveillance became clear as more evidence emerged. The aliens had been recording human diplomatic conversations, copying human technical specifications, and tracking human ship movements throughout the galaxy. On Corvin Prime, the plague was finally ending. Not because of alien medical efforts, but because it had killed everyone who was susceptible to it. Dr. Zenthar, the Corvin scientist who had begged Dr. Helen Burke for help, was among the dead. The Corvin government released a public statement. 12 million citizens died from a plague that human medical technology could have cured. We now understand that humanity's withdrawal was not random cruelty, but a response to our betrayal of their trust. Chairman Vextar called an emergency session of the Galactic Council. The Great Chamber was packed with representatives demanding answers. Fellow council members, Vextar began, we have discovered the cause of humanity's withdrawal. The sapient species monitoring protocol, which this council approved 2 years ago, was discovered by Human Intelligence Services. The chamber erupted in shocked voices. Many representatives had not known about the surveillance program. The humans know we were spying on them, Vextar continued. Their withdrawal is not an emotional response. It is a calculated demonstration of what galactic civilization looks like without their participation. Representative Thys from the Aquatic Collective raised a tentacle. Are you saying the humans are teaching us a lesson? I'm saying the humans are showing us exactly how much we depend on them. And they're doing it by simply walking away. Lita. Truth was spreading throughout the galaxy. News networks reported the story of the secret surveillance program. Public opinion began to shift as alien citizens realized their governments had been spying on the species that had helped them the most. On Earth, President Evans received reports about the changing galactic attitude. Ma'am, said Press Secretary, Linda Martinez, alien governments are starting to admit their mistake publicly. Several species have issued formal apologies. Too little, too late? The President asked. Maybe. But the galaxy is learning that trust, once broken, is hard to rebuild. President Evans looked out her office window at the peaceful Earth sky. Linda, how do you think this ends? I don't know, ma'am. But I think the aliens are finally understanding that humanity's greatest strength was never our technology or our military power. It was our willingness to help others even when we gained nothing in return. And now they know what they lost when they chose fear over trust. The galaxy was beginning to understand the true cost of their surveillance program. It wasn't just the economic collapse or the military conflicts. It was the loss of the one species that had consistently put the greater good ahead of their own interests. Humanity had shown them what they were worth by demonstrating what the galaxy looked like. Without them, 8 months had passed since humanity went silent, and the galaxy was on the edge of complete collapse. Chairman Vextar stood before the Galactic Council, knowing this might be his last day in office. Half the member species were calling for his removal, and the other half were too busy fighting wars to attend council meetings. Fellow representatives, Vextar began, we have reached a breaking point. The galactic economy has collapsed by 40%. 7 different wars are raging across our territories. 63 worlds are experiencing humanitarian crises we cannot solve. Representative Thys from the Aquatic Collective spoke first. Chairman, the death toll from conflicts alone has reached 100 million beings. Our civilizations are destroying themselves. Council member Jorak from the Mining Guild was more direct. We need the humans back. Without them, we're going to destroy everything we've built over the past 1,000 years. Vextar had been thinking the same thing. I have a proposal. The Galactic Council formally apologizes to humanity for our surveillance program. We dismantle all monitoring operations immediately, and we offer humanity complete autonomy in any future agreements. What does that mean? Asked Representative Killix. It means humanity gets to make their own decisions without council oversight. No more votes about what they can or cannot do. No more monitoring their activities. Complete independence within the galactic community. The chamber fell silent. What Vextar was proposing was unprecedented. No species had ever been given complete autonomy within the galactic framework. And if they refuse? Thais asked. Vextar looked around the chamber. Then we continue watching our civilization fall apart. The vote was unanimous. For the first time in Galactic Council history, every single representative voted the same way. The formal apology was broadcast across the galaxy. Chairman Vexitar, speaking for all member species, admitted to the surveillance program and offered humanity unprecedented independence within the galactic community. To the people of Earth, Vextar said, "We have betrayed your trust. We spied on the species. That helped us the most. We treated you as a threat when you had only been our friends. We are dismantling all surveillance operations and offering you complete autonomy in galactic affairs. We hope you will consider giving us another chance." On Earth, President Laura Evans watched the broadcast with her cabinet. The alien chairman looked genuinely remorseful, but Laura knew words were not enough. "Ma'am," said Defense Secretary Robert Clark, "they're offering us everything we could want. Complete independence, no oversight. Full galactic citizenship without any restrictions." "What do you think, Chris?" Laura asked Intelligence Officer Chris Morgan. Chris had been analyzing alien communications for months. "Ma'am, their apology appears genuine. More importantly, they've actually started dismantling the surveillance network. My agents confirm they're removing listening devices and recalling spy operations." "And the galactic situation?" Treasury Secretary Dan Foster consulted. His reports, "It's worse than we predicted. Complete economic collapse in some sectors. The wars are spreading. Several species are facing extinction-level events they can't handle alone." President Evans was quiet for a long time. "How many people have died?" "While we've been proving our point, approximately 200 million, ma'am." Laura closed her eyes. 200 million deaths. Exactly the number of lives humanity had saved during the Andorian crisis. The irony was not lost on her. "Ma'am," said Press Secretary Linda Martinez, "we've made our point. The galaxy knows they need us. The question is, do we want to help them again?" Before President Evans could respond, they received an unexpected communication. It came not from the Galactic Council, but from Captain Jake Morrison aboard the USS Horizon's Edge. "Ma'am," Jake's voice said through the communication system, "request permission to break Gray Protocol for humanitarian reasons." Laura was surprised. "Captain Morrison, explain your situation." "Ma'am, I'm observing a refugee convoy of civilian ships. 3 million beings fleeing the war zone in the Corvin sector. They're being pursued by military vessels, and they won't survive without assistance. Captain, you understand the Gray Protocol?" "Yes, ma'am. But I also understand my duty to protect innocent life." Laura looked around her cabinet room. Every face was watching her, waiting for her decision. "Captain Morrison, you are authorized to break Gray Protocol for humanitarian purposes. Assist the refugees." "Thank you, ma'am." Horizon's Edge out. Jake Morrison's ship appeared on alien sensors like a ghost returning from the dead. His sudden arrival at the refugee convoy shocked both the fleeing civilians and the pursuing military vessels. "Attention, all ships," Jake broadcast on open frequencies. "This is Captain Morrison of the Earth vessel Horizon's Edge. I am declaring these refugees under human protection. Any vessel that attacks them will answer to Earth's Navy." The pursuing warships immediately stopped their advance. No one wanted to be the first to fire on a human vessel after 8 months of silence. Jake's communications officer, Amy Rodriguez, was amazed by the response. "Captain, we're receiving surrender requests from both sides of the conflict. They want us to mediate." Tony Clark checked his sensors. "Sir, I'm detecting human response signals throughout the sector. Other Earth ships are breaking Gray Protocol too." Word of Captain Morrison's actions spread across the galaxy within hours. Human ships began appearing at crisis points throughout known space. Not in large numbers, but enough to make a difference. Dr. Helen Burke finally responded to Dr. Vexnell's medical emergency. Her message was simple: medical assistance package transmitted, plague cure attached, No response necessary. Commander Ryan Foster on Luna Base received new orders from Earth Central Command. Gray Protocol modified. Humanitarian assistance authorized at captain's discretion. Full diplomatic contact pending government decision. The galaxy's response was immediate and overwhelming. Alien governments began broadcasting messages of gratitude. Species that had been fighting for months declared ceasefires wherever human ships appeared. Chairman Vextar received the message he had been hoping for. It came not from President Evans or Earth's government, but from Captain Jake Morrison. Chairman Vextar, this is Captain Morrison speaking for the Earth vessel Horizon's Edge. Humanity has received your formal apology. We are willing to consider limited re-engagement with galactic civilization. Vextar nearly fell from his chair. Captain, what are your terms? Simple. Complete transparency in all future agreements. No surveillance of human activities. Recognition of human autonomy in internal affairs. And most importantly, a formal guarantee that this council will never again vote to monitor or control any member species without their knowledge and consent. Agreed, Vextar said immediately. All terms accepted. Then humanity will consider returning to limited diplomatic relations. Expect our full response in 30 days. President Evans made her final decision after consulting with every major government on Earth. The message she sent to the Galactic Council was brief but clear. The United Earth Government accepts the Galactic Council's formal apology. We will resume limited diplomatic relations under the terms specified by Captain Morrison. However, trust must be rebuilt gradually. We will participate in humanitarian efforts immediately, but full diplomatic engagement will be restored over time as confidence is rebuilt. Admiral Kevin Thompson was chosen to lead humanity's return to galactic affairs. His first stop was Station Nexus, where he was greeted by Chairman Vextar and the entire Galactic Council. Admiral Thompson, Vextar said, welcome back. Kevin looked around the great chamber where Ambassador Lisa Grant had announced humanity's withdrawal 8 months earlier. Chairman, we're here to help, but things will be different this time. How so? Last time you saw us as junior partners who needed supervision. This time, you'll work with us as equals. The surveillance, the monitoring, the votes about what we can and cannot do. All of that ends now. Vexatar nodded. We understand, Admiral. We've learned that trust cannot be rebuilt through observation. It can only be rebuilt through respect. The first test came immediately. The war between the Corvan Trade Federation and the Stellar Republic was still raging, with millions of lives at stake. Admiral, Vextar said, will you help us end this conflict? Kevin smiled. Chairman, that's exactly why we're here. Within a week, Admiral Thompson had negotiated a ceasefire between both sides. Not through threats or military force, but through the same patient diplomacy that had made humanity valuable to the galaxy in the first place. Ambassador Lisa Grant returned to Station Nexus 6 months later. The chamber where she had announced humanity's withdrawal now welcomed her as humanity's sovereign representative. She wasn't just another council member anymore. She was Earth's independent voice in galactic affairs. Ambassador Grant, Chairman Vextar said during her first speech back to the council. What did humanity learn during our separation? Lisa looked around the chamber at faces that had once taken human help for granted. We learned that respect isn't given, Chairman. It's earned. And sometimes the only way to earn respect is to show others what they lose when they take you for granted. The galaxy had learned the same lesson. Humanity's 8-month absence had taught them something more valuable than any technology or military alliance: the importance of tree